Today I'm going to be showing you some actually useful tips that every Dragon's Dogma 2 player should know. These tips are going to cover things that everybody will encounter at some point in the game or questions that you may have answered, and I'm going to give you some practical advice on what you can and cannot do in terms of how you like to play the game. If you found the video useful and informative, do drop me a like and a subscribe down below, and let's jump into it. So the first thing that we are going to cover here then is actually a thief skill, and it's going to be one of the core skills that the thief has. That is going to be the bump and lift. This is where it robs the target of an item when an auto attack connects, and it activates when using carve but has a low success rate. Now, this might seem pretty basic and simple, but this is really useful if you are going to be playing the Thief class, or if you're thinking about playing the Warfarer class, and you can actually use this core skill if you equip a pair of daggers. This is important because it also works on drakes. Now, you don't necessarily need to farm this per se, but you can play it as normal, and from time to time you will benefit from getting a few extra worm life crystals, or some dragon scales, or whatever materials relate to the specific mob that you are fighting, so it can be really, really nice. Now, the next thing here is we're going to be talking about the fastest ways to make gold in Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, a lot of people may have seen some of the guides that are already here on YouTube in terms of buying fruit, waiting till it ripens, and then selling it ripe whilst storing it in your storage in between these stages. And while that is probably one of the best methods to make yourself some money, it does kind of detract from the gameplay because you kind of have to sit there and farm this out. But there is some ways you can increase your money gain or your gold gain as you are playing the game, so this is what I'm going to quickly cover because these are great to be aware of. First things first, your valuables. You've got different ones here, so you've got jaspers, you've got onyxes, and you've got tiger's eyes. It'll say at the bottom here, scarcely seen in whichever lands. You can see the tiger eye is scarcely seen in Elven, onyx is Vermund, and jasper is Batal. Now, if we go ahead and talk to any of the merchants in that area, and if you have a look, you can see here that because it's scarcely seen in Batal, this one actually sells for just over 3 times the price at 2,800. So you can sell these for much more, whereas I can get 900 each right here. If I head over to Sacred Arbor, these will sell for about 2,800 per as well, so you can make some money out of this, and these are things you'll find as you're going around the game. Now, obviously the fruit thing does work as you are out and about as well, so if you do see any apples or grapes or even these quinces, you should definitely pick them up and then just return to a tavern when you've finished your adventure. Whenever you can access your storage, pop them away, and if you've got any ripened ones, this is great. You can go ahead and sell these, and they will sell for quite a decent bit. If you have actually got some rotten ones, of course you can store them or just get rid of them. They're not really going to sell for anything, and this probably will happen as you're going around your journey, but you can also get yourself the regular ones back and some of the ripened ones, which will then sell for more money. So you can do this kind of without farming it, just to get a little bit of extra if you're making sure you're picking up all of the fruit and all of the plants that you see. Anything you're not going to use to combine or to use as curatives themselves, you can just sell on, and that will get you a bit of passive income if you are just literally picking things up as you're going around. My favourite thing for this is finding the wandering merchants, because if you've picked up some apples, a couple have gone rotten, a few have gone ripened, and some are regular, you can literally just sell them all to that wandering merchant as you're out and about on your travel. It will reduce the amount of weight you've got on you and net you a nice bit of money as well, so that's great. Also, you always want to mine ores. If we head over to the materials tab here, and you see all of these ores that you can see at the top here, all of these will sell for some money, some much more than others. If you do manage to get yourself some gold ore, this is quite expensive. Same with copperstone, very expensive. And there is some other stuff like this Fulligan ore that you can find as well, which can be expensive. But even things like the copper and the silver, they will stack up, and also the sulfur and iron. These will stack up over time, and you can basically sell these along with any other material you might have. Now, as you can see here, I have quite a lot of materials in my storage. 62 goblin horns, for example, slate coloured horns 43, and so on and so forth. Now, what you could do with these is actually go down to around 6 or 9. I usually keep these in multiples of 3 because they are often needed for the upgrades, and usually this is the lowest amount in 3, sometimes 5 or 6. But if you keep around 9 of each and sell any surplus, that will also net you quite a bit of profit. Even if these are, say, 50 gold each, if I sold 40 of them, we're going to be looking at quite a decent amount of money. So again, you can get yourself a few thousand off just selling some excess materials. unless of course it's super rare, then I would keep hold of it, and my opinion would be to always keep hold of your Saurian tails because you can make some of the best healing items in the game with these. Now one thing that's worth noting with that is if you are going to sell materials and then you end up actually needing one of the materials that you sold for an upgrade in the future, if you have a pawn, either your main pawn or one of your hired ones, with the forager specialization, you will be able to see the materials that you require for your upgrades on the map, which are going to be these little blue crystals. And you can see if you hover over it, it says forager, you can interact with it and it'll tell you what you need and what you're going to get from these areas. So this is a really good way as well. If you do accidentally sell stuff, you don't need to worry too much because you will be able to find where they are and get some back. Smaller enemies that there is more of in close proximity that are easier to kill will end up netting you a much larger amount of discipline points much quicker than hunting for boss mobs all the time, as well the bosses will net you a decent bit more discipline points per kill. The more consistently you're killing the smaller enemies just around walking the roads or going to some of the highlight points in the map will get you leveled up quicker in your vocation. Not necessarily experience points, but for that particular vocation. To highlight a couple of really great places that I like to farm on, firstly, there is the Drabnir's Grotto, which is kind of the link between Batal and going over to the volcanic islands. This place is like a maze, and there is tons and tons of little enemies in there, which are really, really easy to kill. Also, just walking the roads of around Batal, if you are in that mid-level game, this is a really, really good area as well. All the way up here from the checkpoint rest town all the way down is great. Then, once you are a bit of a higher level, heading over to this part here of the Augments Volcanic Islands, this is going to be a great area to farm when you are a higher level. It's going to have lots of higher level materials in. You can see here I've got a few forager things over here that I would need to get, and so this can be a great way to get yourself some fast discipline points and a bit of XP as well. Now once you've unlocked the Wayfarer vocation, this will of course level up all of your unlocked classes at once if you haven't maxed them out. Some people say that you need to have the classes weapons equipped for this. Some people say that it's just if you've unlocked them. I'm not 100% sure, so I, to be on the safe side, do equip all the vocations that I want to get leveled up a weapon from that vocation when I am running the Warfarer, and this is a good way to level up things altogether. But as you can see, I've managed to get Warfarer to level 5, and all of the ones here that are rank 2 are the ones that I've leveled up simply through just using the Warfarer. Now, bear in mind I only have the Mystic Spear hand maxed, so it is splitting XP between all of the others, but it isn't that quick. So if you do want to level it up fast, I would recommend obviously just selecting the particular vocation you want to do and leveling that one up. But that being said, the Warfarer is a lot of fun and has some great augments, so it is really worth leveling up. Now, while we're talking about augments, if you haven't been aware of this, you can actually go onto the tab, and on PC you can press Shift. There'll be a key in the bottom right which will show you what this is on consoles, where you can have a look at the augment details so you can see whether these ones are worth leveling up. So for example, the Warfare, it gives you Zeal, which reduces the stamina consumed when performing a weapon skill. It's a great augment to have. And then also Dynamicism, which is reduce the amount by which weight affects your movement speed. Again, this is fantastic because it means you can be much more nimble when you are getting into that average and heavy category. So if you're on the way back from a big adventure where you've got a lot of loot, this can be really, really helpful. Another great one to have a look at is going through some of the ones like Trickster, which you might not be instantly drawn to, or one of the others that you haven't put much time into like Mage, and just having a look what those augments are and whether they're going to be good in your build for the class that you want to play once you max out everything, or the class you are currently wanting to play. Is it worth getting a few ranks in a different one to get an augment that is going to really help that build succeed? Now, exploring in Dragon's Dogma 2 is not only fun, but it is also very beneficial. You will find the Seeker's tokens all around the place, which can be traded with the Vocations Guild to get some pretty decent rewards, especially the higher up that you do get. And you can find things like, if you have a look here on the map, we can go over to the Griffin's Nest, which is just here on the map. And you can see behind it, Forested Griffin's Nest right here, just at the bottom of Misty Marshes. If you do head up from the checkpoint rest town, this is the fastest way I've found, is just running simply across up this pathway, and you can climb up this cliff here. That will actually drop you a port crystal, and it will have a lot of other good loot. And there's tons of places on the map, like the Misty Marshes themselves, but you've also got different areas that you can head into, like, for example, Medusa's Lair, or the Caligonius Depths here. Plus lots of other ones, like I mentioned before, Drabnir's Grotto, and tons of other places where you can just explore the map and find some really cool stuff where there's going to be great loot, Seeker's tokens, port crystals, fairy stones, other very, very cool things and fun things to do, as well as encounters with bosses. So always don't stick to the roads, unless of course you are a lower level, in which case it might be safer to stick to the roads. Now, when you are enhancing your equipment in Dragon's Dogma 2, you can of course do the 4 different types, which are Vermundian, Batali, as you can see on the screen here. There is also Dwarven and Elven. Each of these will give their own benefit, which is outlined at the top here, and upgrading this 3 times and then talking to the Dragon Forged NPC will unlock Dragonforging. Now, 2 things need to be known about the Dragonforging. It will halve the weight of any weapon, which is really helpful and could be essential for things, I would argue, like the Medusan Spellbow. If you're going to use that, you definitely want it Dragonforged, so it's actually a reasonable pickup. And Dragonforging will also boost the strength, magic, etc. of your weapons and armor. As you can see here, I have got 3 Vermundian enchantments on this staff, but if I wanted to upgrade this with Elven instead, well, another thing that's really crucial to note about the Dragonforged NPC, who, for anyone wondering where he is right next to the Riftstone of Remembrance here by the Bay Wayside Shrine. This is where you'll see him on the map. I've got a port crystal down right next to it. And this guy, if you speak to him, can also reset your enhancements. So if you have leveled something up and you actually want to change what you've done, you can go over here, spend some Worm Life crystals. Doesn't cost that much, and you can reset fully the enhancements. Of course, you will need the materials and the gold again in order to get them back up. But if you really have got a good weapon, you don't want the enhancements you've already put on them on anymore, or you want to change your build, this is great information to know. Now, it's really worth knowing that most things in the game will respawn/restock in a few days to a couple of weeks of in-game time. This includes NPCs in the case of the Dragon's Plague hits, although not all NPCs, just the important ones that affect things like the questline. But all enemies will respawn, all shops will restock, and that kind of thing, so you may have to wait a few days. It's worth noting that some boss locations can actually spawn different bosses. There is a few areas in the game where different ones can spawn, but they will respawn something or a boss there after a certain while, and most places are the same ones if you wait a few days or a couple of weeks. So you can farm whatever you would like to in the game with this strategy, whether it's through shops or whether it's monsters or whether it's certain groups of enemies. Whatever you want to do, different ores, different things to collect, all that stuff will respawn. So nothing really breaks the game to the point where it won't respawn or restock. And even things like the wooden bridges, which most people know by now, will be rebuilt if they are destroyed after a few days of in-game time. And finally then, the Dragon's Plague. What happens if the Dragon's Plague hits? It's game-breaking, it's terrible. Well, yeah, it's annoying, but you can actually see if it happens before it happens. So the best way to do this is to interact with your main pawn or any of the pawns that you have in your party, speak to them, and see if their eyes start to glow or flicker red. Now, as you can see here, mine isn't doing that. She's just got the regular coloured eyes, so that is absolutely fine. So that's not a problem. Now, if your main pawn does actually get the Dragon's Plague or a red glow in their eyes, you want to pick them up and throw them into the nearest brine as soon as possible and then revive them at the Riftstone. That is your problem dealt with. If one of your hired ones gets it, then you simply want to dismiss them and get someone new ASAP. That way you won't wake up next time you rest at an inn with a whole village full of people being attacked. Now, I would always recommend to check this every few days of in-game time or before you sleep at an inn somewhere, just to make sure. You can have a look. You don't even need to interact with them if you're confident with it, but it's a good way to do so, and then you can make sure that that problem won't be affecting your save and it will not disrupt your gameplay. Like I said, the important ones will respawn eventually in terms of the NPCs, but it's also really good to not have to go through this, so I would definitely recommend checking whenever you're going to sleep if you've got different pawns from the last time when you did, or your main pawn has come back from a different world. So that is going to be it for some quick, useful tips that every player should know in Dragon's Dogma 2. If there's anything else you think I've missed, drop them in the comments down below. Make sure you drop me a like and a subscribe. Both those things are very much appreciated and really help out the channel. And other than that, I'll catch you again very shortly in a brand new upload. So take care and peace.